Perfect.
Okay.
Wait, now you may want to raise the mic.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
It's actually good that you have a good ear for this because I don't. Like, I have spent so long trying to figure out how to talk into these mics, and somehow you just were able to solve it in like 20 seconds.
No, it's literally because I listen to so many TikToks like Brooke and Jubal in the morning.
Okay, I listened to those too, but those are old. Do you know that show ended in like 2005?
2005?
Or like, wait, I might be way off, but it's something like 15 years ago.
But the Jubal show is still happening. So
Is it?
Yeah, but Brooke is no longer on the show.
I'm going to check.
So I don't know when, but then someone recently, the Jubal show started going viral on TikTok, and someone commented being like, "Where's Brooke?" And the show was like, "Oh, she's not here. It's just that these posts are going viral lately, but it's just the Jubal show."
Yeah, I want to see, when did it end? Jubal was fired in 2020, but
What?
I don't know. That's AI. That could be wrong. I don't know. I'm wrong. I was way off if I said 2005 and it's 2020, but 2020 is still like 5 years ago that the show ended.
No, Jubal show is still happening.
I don't know. But it was a great concept, but it also was a good concept before people were like really active on social media. Mm-hmm. So you literally would get a phone call in the morning from someone being like, "Why'd you ghost them?"
Yeah, I know. Oh my God. So yeah, I watched a lot of that, and then I love the Reddit podcast, so I listen to some like Two Hot Takes and like other ones.
Yeah, I like them too.
Yeah. So this will be one of those.
I hope so. I hope people like it.
It is.
So I'm somebody who will literally sit for hours reading Reddit stories and then going through the comments and like
figuring things
getting
out.
really angry about things. And I really enjoyed the Two Hot Takes podcast, and I was looking for something like that with NDEs and the spiritual side of things, like with Reddit stories. And I couldn't find one that I enjoyed wasn't like, I guess, too structured or too storytelling, or that was more casual, and that was like kind of people going through it and shooting the shit in a sense.
Yeah.
So that is how this was born.
Oh.
But in the time it took me to start this, it's possible that those podcasts now exist and I just don't know.
No. And either way, even if it did, like you had something different. This is like Erin's show about mystical experiences and near-death experiences. So everyone will follow along who wants to.
I hope so. And I'm so glad that you are a guest. So welcome. Hold on. We're going to redo that because I was just giving the wrong name.
We were saying Two Hot Takes and I got stuck near it.
Okay. Welcome, Divya. Welcome to Overheard Online.
Ooh.
Welcome. You're one of the first guests. So how does it feel to be at the forefront of being a guest on this podcast?
Oh, I'm just so excited to be here. I can't wait to hear what you have picked for us today. And I love Reddit stories, so let's go.
I wrote a whole script specifically for you with stories I thought you would enjoy. Ooh. But before we get into them, I want to know how you're feeling. I want to know sort of coming into the podcast, do you have any beliefs about NDEs or, lucid dreams or your thoughts on meditation? Like, do you have any thoughts about the metaphysical that people might feel is a little more woo-woo, but it kind of works for you?
Yeah. I think some of my perspectives might blow some people's minds out of the water because I really believe in the metaphysical. Like I just got back from a meditation retreat that was 7 days long. Like
I didn't know that.
Yeah, have you heard of Joe Dispenza?
Yes, of course I have.
I went to a Joe Dispenza retreat.
I didn't know that. Yeah. Wait, I've heard that people see the same aliens every time they meditate around him, like these big white aliens that when they meditate, they see them around the room. Did you see them?
I did not see them, but I do know some people that saw like really crazy things during their meditations.
How was it?
It was really cool. It was intense. Like we were meditating 6 hours a day. I barely meditated for like 20 minutes before that. So it was extreme. But it was really good. I learned a lot. I met so many different people and I learned a lot about me. But I learned a lot about the metaphysical there too.
Would you recommend it?
Yeah, I would recommend it for sure. I would go back again, actually, but I would probably go back in a few years after I've had some time to like work with the material and do my own thing. But yeah, I would definitely recommend it.
I feel like it's so, when it comes to meditation, at least, So I meditate all the time. I've talked about this before. I do the gateway tapes, which is not Joe Dispenza. Dispenza.
Yeah.
Although I did read his stuff, but it's kind of within the same, I mean, he kind of takes it, he approaches the material differently, but the gateway tapes, I can send them to you, but they use frequencies to push you into different levels of consciousness.
Whoa.
So,
like sound frequencies?
Yeah, correct.
Ah.
So the tape, so it took me, I would say meditating without the tapes, it took me 6 months of going from 5 minutes to 30 minutes a day, months to start to feel like, ooh, this kind of feels tingly in my body. Like to feel like, oh my God, I'm kind of like I'm in my body, but not. With the tapes, it took two tapes. And now I can sit and listen to 3 in a row.
Whoa.
So I can listen to if I can't fall asleep, I will meditate for 3 hours because it's not, and sometimes I'll be in the middle and I'll be floating. I'll just be like, this feels so good. I don't want to stop. How much longer do I have? So it depends because I feel like they're trying to, so what you just described, jumping into the meditation without having that baseline of what it feels like to be in different focus levels. I could see how that would be hard to get into or boring or difficult to kind of jump in at that stage.
I mean, it just shows you different parts of yourself, right? So first of all, I think you would love a Joe Dispenza retreat. It would be incredible.
I want to do the Monroe Institute retreat if I were to do one.
I don't know that.
People claim, I don't know if this is true, they try to teach you how to bend forks and spoons with your mind. That is at one of their workshops there because I don't know, man. People claim that they did it. I don't know. That's the thing that they claim. But,
yeah. I mean, I believe it. Listen, I truly believe in so many things on this earth that we can't see. If you, and this is some of the cool stuff that I learned at Joe Dispenza that, you all kind of learn and pick up on social media. But one of the things that we know is that when you're looking at the spectrum of light, we can only see the tiniest slivers of color. And then light and sound are just two different types of frequencies. So there's so many other frequencies that we can't tune into because our brains just filter that information out as we get older and older and older.
Something that I found difficult to comprehend, but also really, I guess, stuck with or sticks with me, that I thought about one day that I guess kind of changed my perspective on how the world works is cell phones work, from my understanding, using light waves or radio waves. That's information travels around you, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with the radio. You tune into a station, but the antenna is picking up on information that is physically there that the antenna picks up for it, is able to jump into a stream based on the frequency. Yeah. That means that all of that information from all of those distances is currently on top of me right now where I'm sitting. Yeah. And that is a crazy thing to think about. If I can tune into a cell phone call from Australia and instantly, but that means that information is instantly here because there's an antenna, that information is traveling instantly. So that means all information getting everywhere around you is all around you at the same time. So that, we don't see it, but it has to be there because cell phones work. But it's not just sending audio, it's sending visuals. So if we can project an image onto a screen, why couldn't we project ourselves, into a place? But it's kind of boggled with my mind. A part of me is I kind of feel like we're tuning into a channel in a sense. Yeah,
well, that's where you get the things like clairvoyance and clairaudience and clairsentience. Yeah. There are people who can tap into voices that are in different frequencies, or people who can tap into different visuals. There's so many different skills and talents that can come from just refining your antenna.
Yeah. Well, I also wonder if sometimes when people do certain drugs, it's one of those things where if you mess with a radio wire without properly attuning it, it won't go back to the normal frequency easily. You'll have static. You won't be able to focus. So I wonder if sometimes when people jump in with hard drugs who aren't mentally prepared for it, or maybe, who have predispositions, I wonder if it's not that what they see isn't there. It's that they are not able to then ground themselves back in this dimension. So other things creep in, kind of like an antenna that's broken or it's picking up on static if you don't properly take care of it. Yeah. So not in a, when people have psychosis from drugs, I wonder if it's one of those things where if you enter those planes too many times and in an uncontrolled way, if then things can creep through because your brain just can't, an antenna that's just going up and down, not being properly cared for. Right. That was something I thought about one day, and I was because I meditate and I see things and I hear things. I'm like, what if one day I meditate myself into like, because that is spiritual psychosis is a thing. You can totally, have you ever heard of spiritual psychosis?
No.
People who become so spiritual, but like then go off to the woo-woo and like can't ground themselves back in reality.
What does that look like? What are they doing? Are they like saying weird things? Are they doing weird things?
Yeah, like they're no longer like attached to, they're having difficulty grounding themselves. So they're like mentally not on this earth. There are some, I mean, I don't want to call anybody out specifically, I'll show you afterwards, but there's like some creators on TikTok that like, I like looked at them like, that person is in spiritual psychosis. And it's like somebody who might have done mushrooms like 20 times. And like all of a sudden you see them and they are like living in the forest off the land and like, you know what I mean? And like singing about how like life is, and you're just like, you are not grounded in this reality at all. And like, it's not, you know, maybe they just like did a lot of something and all of a sudden you just look at them and like, they're no longer here. You know, when you can just tell that someone's no longer here?
Yeah, I guess maybe I haven't seen enough examples because I don't exactly know what you're talking about, but I know like of psychosis. Yeah,
I'll show you an example of spiritual psychosis afterwards. Okay. You'll be like, yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. I like you to take a break and show you now, but I don't want to. Yeah, we could, I guess, because like then we can return. Hold on.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, so now we're back. We're back. Now you have an idea of what I mean by spiritual psychosis?
Yes, I do.
I dabble in all these things, but I think we both believe in a lot of these things, but it's more when you're no longer grounded in reality. At least that's the line that I draw.
Yeah.
When like, you're just no longer able to interact with the physical world or with people around you in like a healthy way.
That's fair. Yeah. I think the hard part is there's so much that we don't have access to in terms of information and what other people experience versus what we experience. But I think you kind of nailed it, that like you can't interact with people in a way that's meaningful.
Yeah.
Period.
Well, there were a couple of channelers who were, I think, is it the Esther? Oh my God. There was a series of books written by, is it Esther? It's not Hicks, but basically this, she worked at a university and she was a professor. Mm-hmm. And one day this voice just came to her and said, I'm Abraham, or like, I'm this God.
Oh, and like, I heard about this.
And she all of a sudden had this voice speaking to her, and it's like, write down everything I say. And like, this information is necessary and I'm giving it to you.
Yeah.
And so initially she's like, I'm losing my mind. Because she tapped into something. She's like, I'm losing my mind. And that is a level, like in my mind, that's what I just said earlier, or what I had touched on earlier, which is, I think a lot of people who go through psychosis, their antenna is just working differently and they can't. Mm-hmm. And so she sat down with a colleague, started writing stuff, and she sat down with the colleague and she's like, a voice is telling me to write this all down. I think I'm going through psychosis. What? And she was like, write it down, then decide if it's worth, like decide what it is after you write it. She wrote it and it was like all about quantum theory, all about quantum entanglement. And like, I think this was written in like the 70s or something. And her husband published several volumes. But then, Eckhart Tolle, he discusses how, when he came up with his books, he was in a suicidal meditative state, I believe. Like he was about to commit suicide. And he just went into a state where he tapped into consciousness and just knew things. Yeah. And he wrote books about it, but he wasn't trained in any of the stuff that he wrote books about. Mm-hmm. So his take is, if somebody's speaking to you, there are good and bad entities. Mm-hmm. Ones that have good things to say, ones that have bad things to say. See what they have to say, and if it's useful, use it.
Yeah.
But those people could still interact. That's technically a version of psychosis. And it ended up being helpful and true in a sense. But
no way.
They were still able to interact with the physical world. Like they were still existing on this plane of existence in a healthy way. Yeah. They weren't, incapable of functioning like a normal day-to-day person in a sense.
Yeah. They're not like up in the clouds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the way exactly, up in the clouds. All right. So we can get started here with an episode.
Let's do it.
I have a couple of stories here that I've chosen for you. I did initially edit them to be a little different in terms of flow, but then I lost the editing, so it might be a little bit disorganized. Or we might be jumping around a bit. But we have lots of stories and lots of fun comments to get through. And then I want to hear your take.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, so our first story is from r/glitch in the matrix. It's 10 months old, and it's titled, I think I drove through a wormhole.
Oh my God, I have seen... Wait, okay, keep going.
Have you seen this one?
I've heard... Maybe. Anyway, you keep going. I think I know of a similar story if it's not
Okay, then I'm excited to hear because then that's perfect. Okay. And if it's the same one, then you can still give me your thoughts when you first heard it and we'll go through the comments.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so the OP writes, I got up and got ready for work like any normal day. Then I hopped in the car for my usual hour-and-a-half commute. About 35 minutes into the drive, I missed my exit as a result of a weird traffic instance where I just couldn't get over to the exit in time. No big deal, my GPS rerouted me, and to my surprise, it even shaved off a couple of minutes. I thought, nice, maybe I just found a shortcut. So I kept following the new route, unfamiliar with most of it, just trusting the GPS. After another 20 to 25 minutes of driving, I started recognizing the road I was on, but I couldn't quite place it. Then I made a turn and realized I was back on the road that connects directly to the road that I live on. I'd never taken that way before because I had never had any reason to. I recall thinking, wow, this is weird. How did I turn around like that? Mm-hmm. I realized I was going to be late, so I called my boss to let him know that I had made a mistake. Still confused, I decided to swing by the house, let the dogs out, and use the bathroom before heading back on the road. As I pulled up, my heart sank. My car was in the driveway. Same license plate, same everything. That's when I looked down at the steering wheel and realized I was driving my wife's car.
What?
Mm-hmm. I pulled into the driveway, walked inside. My wife was up, which also surprised me. She works night shifts at the hospital and should have been asleep. I asked if she saw me take her keys in the morning. She reached into her purse and then pulled them out. I reached into my own pocket. My keys were there.
Whoa.
How was I driving her car with my keys? Still trying to rationalize it, I got back into my own car and left for work. Again, as I approached the exit I missed earlier, I saw emergency vehicles. The exit was closed due to a crash involving a semi-truck. The car that was crushed in the accident, same make and model as mine. That shook me hard. I took another route to work, called my boss to update him. He said, no worries, you should still make it to the office in time for our meeting. I checked the clock. Somehow I was on time. I called my wife again to confirm that I had stopped by the house earlier. She said I hadn't been home, but she had been looking for her keys everywhere.
Whoa.
I was starting to freak out. I checked my phone's call and text history. Nothing. No calls to my boss. No texts. Do I need to go see a doctor?
Whoa. I was not expecting that. I did not get that story.
What do you think? How are you feeling?
Whoa. It's just so eerie, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That's so crazy. Oh my God. It's weird because it kept on going back and forth. Like, it's not like it was in one time loop. It seemed like it was kind of going back and forth into different ones a little bit.
Yeah, it's almost what's the movie I'm thinking about? It starts with a Q. Oh God, I need to start thinking about these things before I get here. But there's a movie that I actually love, and it's low budget, but basically it's not just that they go into one parallel universe. It's every time they cross a threshold, they go into multiple.
Oh,
so they keep jumping into other parallel universes.
Whoa!
And so it seems like it wasn't just one glitch. It seems like there were multiple stacked on top of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like somehow. But also somehow he wasn't necessarily the him in the glitch that he saw.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an insane, I don't even know how I would feel if that happened to me. Like looking down and being in a different car than the one you thought you left the house in. That's so jarring.
Yeah, I definitely think I would be going crazy after like the fourth switch. I'd be like, what is going on? I'd be like, hey, take me home, put me to bed. I'm going to sleep and wake up tomorrow and make sure everything's okay.
Your wife having the keys, but you were in her car and your car was in the driveway, but then all of a sudden you must have been in your car because she has the keys.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. So, and then no calls going to your boss when you remember calling him.
That's what I mean.
And you're at work on time, so you also backtracked in time.
No, it's crazy. That's so cool.
Yeah. So we have some updates.
Oh, okay.
So the first update is my wife found her keys in my work pants that I wore the day before. Still odd.
Yeah, definitely so odd.
Because then how would he be driving that day if the work keys were in his pants that he didn't wear that day?
And he didn't wear them the day before.
Yeah. So I think this is the same day that he's writing this.
Oh. Yeah, no. Okay, well, found the keys.
Found the keys. Yeah. And so the second update is I asked for a mental health day. My boss thankfully was understanding. I've spent the time trying to piece things together, but I'm left with more questions than I have answers. I can't find any news reports of an accident. I traced the route I took. There is no logical way for it to loop back to my house. I even tested both key fobs. They're not interchangeable. The most unsettling part? I have somewhat of an eidetic memory. I usually remember the tiniest details. What somebody was wearing, what color their mug was. But for the first time in my life, I cannot recall anything about the interaction I had with my wife that morning. She later found her keys in the work pants I wore the day before. That discovery was made before I even came home. There is no way I could have had those keys that morning when I left for work. So what happened? I'm trying to chalk it up to stress, a false memory, maybe a lucid dream or a disassociation, but the fact is, it felt so damn real.
Whoa. I'm like speechless. That's so interesting because I've heard, so the story that I thought you were going to say when you said a wormhole, I saw this Reddit story and it was essentially these group of siblings. They were driving from a family reunion to back home or something. I don't really know. They were driving somewhere and one of the people in the car had to go to the bathroom. So they took an exit and they went to the closest gas station. And this gas station looked super retro. It looked like really grungy and weird. And then they walked into the gas station and it looked like everything was from like the 70s or something. It was like from a different time period. Anyway, they were like, hey, we need to get out of here. They didn't even go to the bathroom. And then they got back into the car and they drove and it felt like they were driving for literally hours before they got off onto the on-ramp. It was just so crazy. But then what's even crazier is there was somebody else who heard the story and was like, I think that was my dad. One day my dad came home from work at the gas station.
Oh my God.
Saying that he saw people from the future. And so I was just like, so that was the story I was thinking of. And that's only one time loop. So it's crazy to hear like this is happening across like multiple time loops.
That's like part of the fun of going through this and going through the like comments is like finding the connections and also finding like the common themes or like the common things that happen. So there's you know, that is this crazy story. So I feel like there are categories almost to like place these stories into. There are the NDEs and resets, I would almost call them.
What are NDEs?
Near-death experiences.
Oh, okay, right.
So when I read the story, I'm drawn more to the NDE of it all versus maybe a wormhole NDE sort of thing where there was like a fork in the road and he kind of interacted with different versions of reality until he found one that he survived in is almost how I sort of feel like. So there was a story that I read with Kelsey, who you know we're currently at her house because she very generously let us record here. There's a story that me and Kelsey read about the reincarnation water wheel is what I call it. Oh. And it's on my Instagram. It's on the Instagram for the podcast. It's on the TikTok if anyone wants to read it or listen to it. But it basically is this guy who's about to get into an accident. He's 90% sure he's about to be T-boned. No way for him to survive it. And then all of a sudden time just stops. And there is this, what he describes as like a water wheel coming diagonally across the field towards him. And as it gets closer, he describes it's like the size of a 10-foot building, and then it's the size of a city, and then it's the size of the world.
What?
And then it takes him over, like rolls over him. And as it rolls over him, there's like each water bracket or each fall of water from the water wheel slaps him one at a time, one after the other. And he realizes that this is reincarnation. And every single one of these like pails of water, these sheets of water is a different reality. And every time it hits him, it's not only that he has to choose a reality that he survives it and jump to that.
Yeah.
It's like he has to choose one, but every time he becomes a different person. So he describes that, and each time he catches his bearings to realize who he is in that reality, the next one slaps him in the face.
Whoa.
And he realizes that every time, unless you're a part of the real, in which case you're not living a life or a physical life, you go through this process over and over again, and you just you jump to another reality that you survive in. So, and one of the things that he described is that this water wheel, or whoever controlled or whatever it was aggressive in how it sorted you, and it didn't care where you went. All that mattered is if you were not in a world, you had to jump into a world, and there were always people jumping into worlds. And if you didn't choose one, it would sort you into one. It might sort you into one that is 2 seconds away from the last reality, and you might die again and go back to the wheel. So if you choose one that's too close, you'll die again and go back. So it almost sounds like if that is reincarnation in a sense, or if that's how we articulate it, but if that's the process, it almost sounds like he jumped 2 versions where he survived, and he was where he continued not surviving until he found one that he fit in. It's almost like he jumped into several.
Wow.
Where, he drives, and then when he describes what happened, he describes that being at the intersection right before, and as he's approaching the intersection, not being sure if he's in the right reality where he survived, or if he accidentally chose when he died in which case he's going to be sucked back up into the water wheel.
What?
Yeah. It's so cool. But it makes me think, applying it to this story, it's kind of that, him seeing the accident afterwards. It's like, what if he jumped into one too close? So they had to resort him again and again. So they kept resorting him, but he didn't quite fit. He remembered too much from the past one. So they kept resorting him until he fit.
Huh. But, okay, so in the water wheel reincarnation thing, was he conscious of every single time he got pulled in and put into a new reality?
He says he doesn't remember every single reality, but he does remember some of them. And he says they were so quick, and his memory is not, he remembers in one, the car was wrapped around, he remembers, he would see them before he chose which one to jump into.
Yeah.
He'd have a little preview before he jumped.
Okay. Whoa. So I think, you're right. I think there are definitely parallels between that for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe that is what he was experiencing.
But then imagine that, so one of the interesting things that you said is that, again, if you jump into one that's too close, or if it'll just sort you to the closest one. So if you don't choose, you will constantly be pulled back up, because it'll always be the closest one if you're automatically sorted. And chances are there's another possibility in the closest one that you would have, all the ones close to it, you likely would have died in.
Yeah.
So you have to almost get a little bit further out from there if you want to escape the constant resorting.
Yeah. Whoa. Yeah. I don't think a doctor's going to help him. I think they're just going to put him in a hospital. So he should keep that one to himself.
Yeah. Imagine you see the accident too. It's like he saw an accident that didn't happen.
I know, that's actually crazy. That's pretty wild. Yeah.
So we have some comments here.
Okay.
So our first commenter writes, "It honestly feels like the story was written by a ghost, one who doesn't realize that he's already dead."
Oh my gosh. Yes. Have you seen I don't watch horror movies, but I somehow got convinced to watch a horror movie on Halloween this year. And I don't remember what it's called, but it's about this hand that is.
I didn't watch it, but it's a funny one too, right?
No, it's a scary one.
Oh no.
Yeah. No, it's a scary movie. But it kind of goes to the point where it's a ghost walking about the earth who doesn't know that he's already dead. So anyway, this hand basically is a portal into a bunch of different dead spirits. And long story short is half of them don't even know that, I would say most of them don't even know that they're dead. By the end of the movie, one of the main characters ends up dead, but she doesn't know that she's dead. And then it isn't until she sees the hand and she's on the other side that she realizes that she's dead.
Oh my God.
So she was like a ghost walking around thinking that she wasn't dead or anything. And then sure enough, she was.
That's so insane. Is it in this parallel, in this, I guess, spirit world, are people really evil?
Yeah.
So it's almost like you jump into an evil timeline, but you're just you don't realize, you just think people have gone mad. And then all of a sudden you realize, oh no, I died and now I'm stuck with the souls of the people.
Yeah. But it's
That
like
is
really,
scary.
I know, it's really scary. And actually it's...
What if that's why the world's so messed up right now?
Honestly...
What if we all accidentally jumped in like this?
I think, so the way that I kind of see reincarnation and, you know, this, I believe in reincarnation, is that the traditional way of reincarnation is, you know, you live a good life, you have good karma, and then good karma is bestowed upon you in your next life, and you end up being, I don't know, a good person or maybe a pet dog in Kelsey's house because...
I mean, yes, that would be like the best life ever.
That would be the best
Party
life
lives the
ever.
best life.
But I also think that part of reincarnation is constantly being reincarnated into a new level of consciousness, you know, and being able to understand the world from a broader perspective and, you know, just be tapped into consciousness on a different level, you know?
So what you believe has parallels with what I believe in like so many different ways, but also I see it a little bit more mechanical in a sense. I feel like, well, my take is, I think the oldest religions say the same thing. And I think that certain books reflect that too, like Journey of Souls, not sure which is the correct, but that is one of my favorite books. I always plug it into things. Basically, he takes people through hypnosis and hypnosis therapy.
Hypnotic therapy?
Hypnotic therapy?
Hypnotherapy?
Yes. Okay. He takes, in the book, he takes his patients through hypnotherapy, and it's patients who have like really big traumas that aren't really explained. Like you can easily explain based on their experiences, or phobias, like young kids who have these crazy phobias of spiders or, you know, different animals or heights. But we're not talking like I'm afraid of heights. We're talking like I can't give my child a bath and I don't know why because they're 2 years old and I don't know why they're kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
And so what he found, he stumbled on an in between. And when he goes through, so with some of his patients' permission, he's done it with hundreds of patients, but the book, 20 of them released their records, just transcripts of them, him talking to them as a soul in hypnosis, and him building out a map
Of
what he believes,
lives.
of what he believes happens in between lives. So it's very detailed and everyone should read it. But so my thoughts are based on that and like different religions that I've looked into. And I think that we as souls are kind of broken off from source soul. I don't know what exactly that is, but like we're kind of like these like broken off pieces of energy. And the goal is to almost become good enough to become our own source soul and make the source soul itself bigger and rejoin it. And so, and like, I feel like that's like a different dimension in a sense. And so I think we have physical experiences to raise our soul level. And then we go, according to this book, we kind of, in between lives, we go and we learn about our lives. And in our soul form, the goal is to graduate to the higher soul level and then hopefully become a guide and then hopefully become, you know, closer and closer, higher, like a higher dimensional being almost in a sense. You know, each time you live a physical life, it's kind of a test. They wipe your memory and they see whether or not you learned all the lessons you were supposed to learn from the past life and then studying about it afterwards. And it's such a beautiful concept because it means that we graduate in terms of, you know, this soul in the physical world, but also you graduate beyond the physical world where you start to exist as a soul helping other souls graduate. So then you move on to becoming a spirit guide. Maybe you incarnate sometimes to help, but you take on that role once you reach a certain level. And then there's levels beyond that. And it's, you know, to what end, who knows? But I love the idea that kind of that the goal is to become better and to make other people better and to help other people. And if that's what it is all about, then like, that's not a horrible thing.
No, that's very much in line with what I believe too. I don't, but the only thing that I believe is that I think that we're all connected simultaneously to source.
Oh yeah, I think there's a thread. Like there's like a web.
Like, exactly.
Like tree, like you know how they say the tree of life? I think that that's where it comes from. Like the trunk, I almost like the seed that grew into the trunk is source, and then slowly like all those branches are like all the like other souls. And then in an ideal world, you do things that make the trunk stronger. Like you like you all kind of contribute, and you're all contributing to one another.
You know what that kind of giving a visual of is? So humans, bodies, everything on this earth has an electromagnetic field. We're all matter, you know, every piece of matter has an energy field and exerts energy. And so as you were talking about the tree of life and like, the roots give to the tree and then, we sprawl out and we contribute to the earth and then, kind of go back and forth. It's kind of like an electromagnetic field that's being created that we create.
Do you know that when I meditate the Bob Monroe tapes, that's what you're supposed to create? It's called the Rebel. It's called the Rebel, I believe. And it's the electromagnetic field that your body naturally has. You're supposed to focus on that energy in order to zip yourself out of your body.
Yeah.
And also you're supposed to focus on the energy to protect your energy from other spirits. So you're supposed to start off all meditations thinking about it and saying to yourself, like, no entity that like wants to hurt me can come within this rebel. Like, this is my protected space. That only things that wish me well and that want to help me can kind of come and interact with me beyond that. But it's interesting because that visual that you just... right?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, Erin. I know what you're talking about.
We have, so here, we'll move on to some more comments.
Yes.
We have another comment here. Somebody writes, Jesus Christ, that was a wild story. It's like 5 glitches mashed into one.
That's what I said.
Yeah, it is exactly what you said. You miss your normal exit and somehow end up far away in unfamiliar roads. Suddenly you're driving your wife's car with her keys. Then the keys change back while you're standing in your own house. You leave again, and it's like time slips backwards, only you find a wrecked car that looks exactly like yours. Then your wife's keys show up and your pants from the day before. They're like, this must be glitch times, I don't know, glitch squared, glitch cubed. Either that or maybe you did drive her car yesterday, missed the exit, and made it to work just fine. Then today there was an accident, coincidentally involving a car just like yours, and something has thrown your memory off for the 2 days. Either way, I hope you turn out okay.
Wow, that's a good summary.
Yeah. Somebody else comments, it feels like that was an intersection of multiple parallel universes where you might have died in several of them. Seriously, nicely done keeping your awareness intact between them. Most people just get a flash of deja vu and move on. You somehow held on to the thread throughout entering each one of them.
Okay, it sounds like that person really knows what they're talking about.
I know.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wait, does that mean that everyone who gets deja vu has like near-death experiences? Or like
no. I also think that it might be another version of you getting one and then you merging with that version in your timeline that you survived it. Because I think we merge.
Huh.
I think that we like kind of have all these tentacles and we're like kind of one soul with all these tentacles living at the same time. And like we slowly merge as things happen.
Oh, that's an interesting theory.
Yeah. So sometimes maybe the deja vu is like another version of you is merging and they might have passed away, but you might have survived, but they jumped to you.
I have never thought about that before.
And you're blending your consciousness and the process is easier when you guys are more similar.
Interesting.
You become an amalgamation of all your lived experiences in every timeline.
Okay, then you would just be like a superhuman or something.
By the end, you kind of get there, don't you?
Yeah.
A lot of people do.
Yeah.
Somebody else writes, I've had a similar experience missing a turn due to a random detour, only to come back around and pass the scene of an awful accident that I know I would have been caught in if I hadn't been rerouted. All I can say is enjoy whatever time you just got back, play the lottery, and tell people in your life that you love them.
That's really sweet. I love Reddit.
Yep. It's so good. Somebody else writes, something similar happened to me once. I was walking home on a street that I knew like the back of my hand. Then suddenly I was on a completely unfamiliar road, like 30 to 45 minutes away from where I remembered being. I had somehow passed the turn I always take without realizing and ended up way further from home than I should have ever been. It honestly felt like I traveled through time and space. I told my dad that I thought I had been abducted by aliens. He didn't believe me, so I never brought it up again, but I still think about it every single time I walk past that street.
That's interesting.
Another person writes, step 1, check for carbon monoxide poisoning. Step 2, call the doctor. Not saying your experience didn't happen. I've had many glitches myself, but this might be a memory lapse, maybe, and you just want to make sure you're all good.
That's a fair assessment, and I actually, even though I'm laughing thinking that this person is very like 3D, I actually really appreciate the suggestion, especially like with carbon monoxide. You don't want to mess with stuff like that.
And there are a lot of glitch stories that are really jarring that people, that ends up being something to consider. Oh. But a part of me also, in like being, I'm going to think through every single avenue. A part of me is like, I wonder if you don't properly integrate. I wonder if that's something that they're able to use to explain the lack of integration. So like, let's say you choose a timeline that you're not properly integrating with, that's kind of a way for the universe to throw that in to be like, carbon monoxide poisoning, you're all good, but that was causing the lapse. And now you can move on from it. You don't have to be stuck wondering, or like, I always wonder if that's something that can be used as a mechanism to allow you to stay grounded in reality.
Right.
That's just a thought. Nobody's ever said that. That's my theory or a theory. Because both could be true, right? It could be.
Cool.
It could be that carbon monoxide poisoning exists, but it also could be that without it, he wouldn't be able to move on. So that could be something that the universe throws in his.
Yeah. So he can just like keep going.
Yeah. Just deal with it and move on without like being so stuck with what happened to me that day.
Yeah. I mean, I hope you get some carbon monoxide in that case then. I would go crazy. I would go crazy thinking about that if that's something that happened to me.
Imagine, so many people, I feel like a lot of these, when people start going down the rabbit hole in a sense, it's because an experience does happen. And I feel like if carbon monoxide isn't involved or anything, it's maybe it was meant for you that you have an experience that kind of pushes you towards a different route.
Totally.
Have you ever had an experience?
Of near-death experience or
any experience. It could be like a crazy lucid dream. It could be like anything. It could be something you said as a child to a parent, which we'll get into some of those later.
True.
Psychics, anything.
Yeah, I did have, I have had a couple of experiences. The very first experience that I had was when I was young. I think I was like in grade 1 and I was visiting my family in India. We were at our family's cottage and I'm just like running up and down stairs, meeting my different cousins, whatever. And I look out onto the balcony and I just see these two people that I had never recognized before. And this is a family it's like a vacation home. Anyway, this was, my family's vacation home. And it was only family that was there. And I knew a lot of my family, like I knew everyone who was going to be there. And I looked at them and they looked at me and they just kind of like waved. And I was like, well, that's so weird. And then I turned around and I looked back and they were gone. And I was like, who the heck were those people? Oh
my God.
And to this day, I still kind of wonder if I even saw them in the first place. I was like, did I just imagine that happening? Because I was like 5, 6 years old. I was really young, right?
Okay. I'm so happy you just told that story because we have a story coming up. Oh my God, I'm so happy you just told me that story. That is crazy. I believe in synchronicities. And the fact that is the first story you're telling me is insane because I'm going to ask you questions afterwards related to a story we're going to go through. So I don't want to get too into it because I want to wait for the story. But do you remember what they look like?
No, just that they were like young men, like 20s, 30s, something like that.
Did you ask anyone about it?
No.
So I always wonder if you have experiences we don't talk about because
Tons.
Because people if you start asking questions, sometimes it turns out that people are able to recognize somebody who passed who might be popping in to say hello.
I mean, I do believe that because here's my second incident. This didn't actually happen to me. This was with my mom. So one year, my mom decides to go see a medium. And this medium is someone who speaks to different spirits and people who have passed on and just basically people who are in the spirit realm. And she was talking to her late father, my grandfather. And the medium said, oh, there's another person in the room. They really want to talk to you. They really want to say hi. And first and foremost, when my mom went to the medium, she didn't give a name. She said that her name was Sunny and she didn't say last name. She pulled up in, a car. She didn't want anybody to know who she was. She just wanted to go about this. And so this lady would have had no idea who my mom was. Anyway, so the medium was like, there's another person that is wanting to talk to you. Like, they really love you. Maybe they're like a secret admirer or something, but like they really want to talk to you. And my mom said, okay. And the medium said, they're saying Ronnie. And Ronnie means sweet. So that's why my mom was like, oh, maybe it's a secret admirer. After my mom got home, she remembered her cousin who passed away. Her nickname was Ronnie.
Oh my God.
It wasn't even her real name. It was her nickname.
Oh my God.
And so we think that it was her that was trying to speak to my mom. And they were like two peas in a pod. Like they were so sweet. Like it was like my mom was her older sister because they all grew up in the same house and everything.
What was it like for your mom to have that realization?
she realized afterwards, and she was kind of mind blown. I think that before she went to the medium experience, she was just going to stay open and, you know, see how it was. She recorded the whole thing. She wanted to make sure that she recorded everything. And
also, like, then you go back and you're like, I must have said something. But if you have the recording, then you can be like, no, I literally didn't say anything. Like, she brought it up. She was pushing. I wasn't giving that any.
Yeah. And it was, and she had passed, my mom's cousin had passed, you know, way longer before that. So like maybe 5 or 6 years before that. So my mom in the session didn't even realize who she was talking about. It wasn't until she got home that she thought that it was her cousin.
Did she go back?
She did go back, yeah.
And did she come back?
No, Ronnie didn't come back, unfortunately. I know. It's kind of sad.
But maybe she just wanted her to know that it was her. Because like, she could have used her real name, but she used that name, said later on she'd know that she was speaking to her. Maybe she just, maybe a part of her just wanted her to know that she's there.
Yeah.
Because she could have given her real name and your mom would have known, right? Mm-hmm. She didn't have to give. But she gave something that she knew your mom would pick up on later on as being special.
Yeah.
That maybe she wouldn't pick up on right away.
It's hard because like when you interact with spirit, it's just like a different, like it's not always clear what's coming through. You kind of have to ask clarifying questions and things like that.
Every medium is so different because they receive information differently. Some do it intuitively and they see shapes. Some see images. Some just go with the vibe. Some draw. Like it's so different.
I know. Yeah. So those I would say are like my 2 mystical experiences, but I definitely believe in, you know, spiritual realms and realms beyond us. And, you know, we're in a quantum world. So there's like an infinite number of multiverses that are happening in this time. So
I also sometimes wonder if a part of it is that all time exists simultaneously. So I wonder if sometimes some people can see past the veil, like slipping. Oh. So I wonder if sometimes it's not necessarily, it's like that person actually can't access you because they actually sort of are around it. You can access at different time.
Actually, yeah, I know what you mean because I was watching a TikTok when I was in the middle of breaking up with someone, or like after I'd broken up with someone. Yeah. And they're like, yeah, the reason why you're not seeing that person, even though you're like walking all in their neighborhood, which was my neighborhood for the record, is because they are no longer in your timeline. Like they are not existent in the timeline that you're currently in. Like you're past it.
Crazy thing to say because I like was seeing somebody who was like so short-lived and whatever.
Yeah.
Didn't work out. His loss. His loss.
Always.
But randomly when we started seeing each other, he was running into all of my friends everywhere. And then all of a sudden he hasn't seen any of them. And like it's so odd because like I've been like, oh, like have you ran into him? And they're like, no, none of us have seen him anywhere unless he's like off the face of the map, but it's possible.
Yes.
I'm like, oh, like he goes to the same gym as like 2 of my friends and like no one's so like not that I've asked, but like they're like, by the way, weird, we kept running into him and like now none of us see him anywhere.
No, that's like a clear indication that they are now in a different timeline. Like you are on separate timelines.
We're back from a little break. And let's move on because we're being so chatty. We're not going to make it through any of these stories. So
we'll stay on point.
Yeah. We better start reading some of them. So our next story, our second story, it's from Glitch in the Matrix, posted 9 months ago. Mm-hmm. And the story, I call it, I Said Hi Back.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. OP writes, I was walking through the International Peace Gardens in Glendale, Utah, when I noticed an elderly couple sitting together on a bench, their backs turned towards me. As I continued along the path, I saw the woman get up and walk around some bushes, heading towards my direction. She passed me, smiled gently, and said, "Hi." I said hello back. A few seconds later, I came around the bushes and saw the old man still sitting there, quietly talking to himself. He looked up at me and gave a soft chuckle. I was just talking to my wife, he said in a thick accent. I laughed and said, well, she just walked past me. Maybe she went to your car or something. I thought it was odd that this little old man was still talking to himself, not realizing that his wife had walked away. And that's when he paused. He said, no, she passed away a few years ago. I stopped in my tracks and said, wait, I just said hi to her. Without a moment of hesitation, he reached into his wallet and pulled out a photo of her, the exact woman that I had just passed. Mm-hmm. He told me that this was their favorite place in the world and that he still comes here because he feels like she's still with him when he's here. I sat down with him for a few minutes while he showed me more pictures of her and their children and their grandkids.
Aww.
He smiled the whole time, proud and full of love, even though she was gone. He told me he still goes there to visit her because he can still feel her presence, and I believed him because I know the woman who I spoke to that day was definitely her.
Yeah. 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 Mm-hmm. Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I saw people that weren't there.
Yeah.
Quote unquote, you know?
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool.
That fits right in. We'll get into some of the comments because we want to get through some of these. The top commenter writes, I'm absolutely sure that she revealed herself to you so that you would stop and talk to him for a minute. I'm sure she feels that he's lonely and misses her. What a beautiful story.
That's so cute. Oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. Wow. Great perspective.
Someone else writes, I wonder if he fully grasps the fact that you did in fact see her and that his gut feeling of her being there was spot on. How absolutely amazing that they're still so connected.
Yeah.
OP responded to that comment saying, I think he knows better than I did. Their love is something I can only dream of having. That kind of connection. Now, a few hours later, I have to say it has changed me.
That is so cute.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
We have a bunch of commenters jumping into their own stories. One writes, it's definitely real. I saw my dad a week after he passed away in the house that he built where he died. He revealed himself to me just standing in the corner of the family room listening in. No one else noticed. Then in a split second, he was gone.
Mm-hmm.
Another person responds to that saying, yep, both my mom and I saw my stepfather hovering over the chair that he died in. Someone else writes, I saw my dad a week after he passed. I'm not sure if it was a half dream or just traumatized. I think I fell asleep with the light off and he turned it on to wake me up. When I opened my eyes, he was just standing there. Then he turned and walked down the hallway. I blinked and he was gone. I ran downstairs and asked my mom if she had come in, but she hadn't. I still wonder, maybe my brain just created a false memory. Maybe the light was never off, but it felt so real.
Yeah. You really do begin to wonder if those things like even really happened. You're like, wait, did I actually just see that? Did I actually just hear that?
Or like maybe some energy is still there from the last time they were in the room. And because you're focused on them, you kind of see the energy. Mm-hmm. Even though they're not there as a soul, like their energy still lingers. Mm-hmm. One Redditor chimes in with some humor saying, the story is pretty cool and I'm happy you had such a good feeling after it. But if I ever saw a ghost, I'd be scared shitless. Then elated to know death isn't the end. Then immediately worried about how many ghosts have seen me yanking it to some weird Brazilian porn. Maybe that's what hell really is. You die and have to justify yourself to all of your deceased relatives. Yikes.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'll skip that version of hell, thanks.
And finally, someone writes, congratulations, you're a medium.
Ooh.
So you said you saw some people floating around.
You know, I really think that everybody has the ability to tap into different frequencies. It's just a matter of how open you are. Like, you know, there's so many phenomenon of children who are looking at parents or like, you know, there's so many interactions between children and the spirit world. And slowly over time that just fades because your brain is kind of filtering things out. But yeah, I think that everybody has the ability to be a medium of any kind.
I agree. I do think that some people are like from a young age maybe didn't close that as quickly or like because of their surroundings or their backgrounds or whatever else it might be.
Yeah.
They might be more open. But I think anybody could teach themselves if they believed, you know. But some people aren't meant to, I think. Okay, we'll move on to another story here. We have one that's got some comments on it. Here, we'll do two more, but one is short.
Okay.
If that works.
Yeah. No, that one was a quick one.
This story is titled, The Day My 5-Year-Old Broke Character and Spoke to Me Like an Adult.
Cool.
It was posted in r/glitch in the matrix and is 4 years old. It goes, this happened about 2 years ago and I was so blown away I immediately took notes and told my wife about it. I still have the notes saved on my phone. At the time, my 5-year-old son was pretty typical for his age. Goofy, playful, always working some angle to negotiate more treats or convince us to buy whatever was at the top of his wish list that week. Like most kids, he had a very self-centered worldview, which is understandable when you're still that young. So when he asked if I could go for a walk, just the two of us, I laughed a little to myself and thought, all right, what is he about to ask me for? We started walking and I asked him, what's on your mind, buddy? He said, nothing really. I just want to have some time to be with you and be peaceful and be out in nature. Then he stopped me for a second. I thought, wow, okay, this is progress. And he said, I want you to know that you're the best dad that I've ever had. You really do help me and my sister a lot. And you're really very nice, even though we don't usually tell you that. So I just wanted to thank you for everything. And I want to be near you always. At this point, the only reason I wasn't completely breaking down in tears was because it all felt so out of character. I honestly thought maybe he was building up to some elaborate joke or request. It just wasn't like him, especially at that age. I managed to croak out something like, I'm really glad to hear that, and I love you very much. And that was it. We just enjoyed the rest of the walk in silence, surrounded by nature. But in that moment, it truly felt like I wasn't speaking to a child. Mm-hmm. It felt like I was speaking to an old soul, one who had lived many lives and just for a moment stepped forward to speak directly to me instead of playing the role of a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful it happened. It's something I will never forget. And just like that, after the walk, he went back to being the same goofy, energetic kid I know and love.
Wow. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Aw, it kind of gives like, you've seen Harry Potter.
Yes, but I have a weird memory. I have, but so long ago.
Fair. It's kind of giving like Professor Trelawney vibes, you know, when she's like giving a prophecy, she like goes into like
I have no idea what we're talking about.
Oh, okay. So in Harry Potter, she's the divinations professor. Okay. And it's all about like psychics and future and understanding omens and things like that. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so she goes into this space where she gets like sucked into this alternate dimension and she speaks and gives prophecies and she doesn't remember that they happen when they happen. And so it sounds like this, child was like, channeling a little bit of a prophecy, I guess, in a way.
It is so crazy when kids break character and I feel like it happens often.
Really?
Yeah, but I see what you're saying. It's like almost like people, they like detach from like the physical life that they're supposed to be playing in. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden they're just somewhere else and then they come back and it's like, it's Kelsey has a story like this.
Oh wait, maybe it's a future version of that kid that comes back that's dead.
Well, he said best father I've ever had. So I mean, if it's the same person, then how would he know about the other fathers he's had?
True.
Kelsey had a moment like this.
Really?
And she talked about it in the first episode. She was holding a mug when she was young in South Africa and just broke character and spoke to her mom like an adult. Apparently, I don't remember. I don't want to misquote it, but it's in the first episode. If I misquote it, I'm so sorry, Kelsey. There's something along the lines of nothing is real. Everything is not real. We come back. When we die, we come back. Everything resets. If I drop this mug, it's not real. It doesn't matter.
Whoa.
Or something like that. And then her mom, she remembers doing it. She even remembers the mug she was holding.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, I need to talk to Kelsey about this. That's crazy.
It's cool. Okay, so we have some comments here. And we're going to jump through them because we've got a bunch of stories in them. Mm-hmm. One commenter writes, and they quote, "You're my favorite mommy I've ever had, and I'd like to be your mommy again next time. Those are the things my toddler used to say to his mom over and over again. He was a fountain of past life stories and strange paranormal encounters at that age. Or maybe he was just an extremely imaginative kid, depending on how you want to look at it." Someone had asked him for an example of a story or something that happened with their son. So the person who wrote the original comment writes, "This one was apparently about the most recent one of his past lives. I'm paraphrasing from memory, but this is as close as you can get, but he was speaking in toddler speech and all." Son says, "I used to have 2 sisters, Daddy." OP, the commenter replies, "Oh yeah, what happened to them? By this point, I was pretty used to these kid stories." Son says, "There was a big war and they were dropping bombs all over. We had a metal shed thing in our garden and we all hid in it. My sister forgot something and she went in to get it. And a bomb hit our house and she died." The commenter says, then what happened? The son responds, my other sister ran after her and she died too. The commenter says, and what happened to you, darling? The son replied, I died too, daddy. Commenter said, then what happened? And the son replied, then I came to live with you.
Whoa.
Another person shares, my son was about 3 or almost 4, and we were looking at a memorial book about the World Trade Center and the 9/11 attacks. Out of nowhere, he just starts sobbing. He said, our feet were so hot, it was making our feet so hot, and we just jumped. We jumped to the sky. He cried until his whole body was shaking, and then he fell asleep and slept for 12 hours. I've never asked him about it again, and he's never brought it up since. He's 6 now.
Yeah.
I'm getting the shivers.
This is crazy.
Goosebumps. Another person contributes. When my son was about 4 years old, he was obsessed with helicopters. Still is, honestly. He would always say things like, I want to jump out of one again. One day I asked him what he meant by again, and he said he used to jump from helicopters. But it's okay, because the balloon thing on his back always opened fine. Then out of nowhere, he got really quiet and sad. He said, if I had jumped the last time, I wouldn't have died in the helicopter when it caught fire. Someone asked if he had asked him for more details about that experience, and the commenter responded that he has not gotten many details, honestly, that the son once described a uniform, so he thinks he might have been in the military, some country, not sure which. He mostly just repeated how much he liked jumping out of helicopters and how bad the fire hurt, but he never gave any details that would point me to a specific country or time. Now he's 9 and doesn't talk about it anymore, but he still says that he wants to go parachute jumping when he grows up. I'm not thrilled about it, but I guess when he turns 18, I'll have no choice.
Huh. Yeah, this is giving... have you heard of Luna the dog?
No.
So there's this dog on Instagram, I think TikTok, I'm sure TikTok. And
Sure, both.
Yeah, probably both. She's a poodle, I think. And she can do math. She can, like, do
What do you mean?
No, for real.
Are you sure that this is not editing?
No, it's not. Like, you can clearly tell.
How does a dog do math?
It does. Okay.
How does it communicate the answer?
With, like, a paw taps. So
are you sure that they're not, like, in the background being like...
Definitely not.
You are so sure.
Oh, I'm so sure. And then at one point in time in one of the videos, the owner asks... were you my something in another life? Like, were you my mom or dad or something like that? And like Luna gets excited. Like Luna understands what the owner's saying. It's like, yeah, no, you're right. Like it was part of the family always. And now it was a dog.
Boy, that's so cute.
Yeah.
Oh, we have some more here. We'll power through them.
Okay.
One person writes, my son who was 4, he had a few moments like this. Once when we were playing, he spontaneously said, remember back when I was big, like really big, like 27, and I was the daddy, but then I died and now you're my daddy? Another time during a rainstorm, he was in the car with his mom. She had a fear of bad weather. Out of nowhere, our son said in a really serious voice, it's okay, everybody dies. We just get to start over again. Like, you just go back to being a baby. And once, while doing some weird gymnastics moves, he said, when you're a kid again, you got to try this one out. Yeah.
Whoa.
Another one writes, my 5-year-old brother recently talked to my mom about his past life after refusing to go near a church on our street. He told her a bit about his life, then a bit about his funeral at a church, and that his children were there, and that he was buried in a box in the ground. It seems like 5-year-olds remember their past lives for some reason.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. One other person writes, I was especially close to my boyfriend's 4-year-old son. He was a gorgeous, wild kid, and I truly love him as a human being. We became fast friends. One day, we were lying in bed, and he said, I knew you before Daddy knew you. I said, yeah, we've been together for almost a year now. He said, no, I knew you before, and we were married. I was killed by a bomb. I couldn't get back to you. I was too late. He looked deep into my eyes, unflinching, and said he tried to come back, but he couldn't until now, that we were married and that he hopes one day we'll be married again. I joked, we'll have to see what your dad thinks about that. I'm his girlfriend. He might get a little jealous. The son simply answered, but you were my wife. And then he turned back to himself. When I tried to ask him more about it, he replied, why are you being weird? And went back to playing with my camera. I don't believe in the paranormal, but after that, I'm not so sure. It felt like an otherworldly connection, like we'd gotten into mischief together many times before. I can't help but feel like he's some long-lost soulmate.
Whoa. Mm-hmm. That one is crazy.
Yeah.
That'd be a little bit creepy, actually.
Yeah. We can wrap up with one story that's just a topper, a kind of ender of the whole thing, and then we can just do a wrap up. It's a short one, but it's a nice little story to end things off on. Nice little note. This one is titled, "The Ripple Effect is Real. I saw it during my near-death experience." It was posted in r/NDE and is 5 months old. The story goes, "I've been thinking a lot lately about how a single act of kindness can ripple out in ways we don't always see. That idea became instantly real to me after a near-death experience I had a few years ago. It's not something I talk about much, but it completely changed how I see the world and how I understand the impact of even the tiniest actions. During the experience, I went through what people call a life review, but it didn't feel like judgment. It was more like stepping into a vast web of connections. I could feel the emotions and impact of everything I had ever done. Literally everything. When I hurt somebody, I felt their pain as if it were mine. When I helped somebody, I felt their joy and their relief. And the wildest part, those actions didn't stop with the person I directly affected. They radiated outwards, touching people I didn't even know. There was one moment that completely floored me. It was so small that I had forgotten all about it. Years ago, I had held open a door for an older man. He smiled, said thank you, and kept walking. That was it. But in the life review, I saw that he had been feeling invisible and hopeless that day. That tiny moment gave him just enough hope to reach out and reconnect with his estranged daughter. That she, in turn, was inspired to start volunteering at a crisis hotline. And one night, she talked to somebody out of ending their life. That person went on to help somebody else, and the ripple just kept on going. And it all started with me just holding open a door. That's not just some spiritual metaphor. There's actual research that backs this up. Kindness spreads mathematically like ripples in a pond. One act of kindness can influence at least 3 people.
Wow.
Those 3 influence 3 more, and so on. By the 10th wave, a single act can touch over 59,000 people. By the 20th, billions. Sure, not every ripple gets that far, but even a small fraction can be that massive. Since that experience, I've made it a priority to do something kind for someone each day, especially here on Reddit, because words have just as much power as actions. Uplifting somebody online can create the same ripple effect.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, so can a cruel and thoughtless comment. The ripples go both ways. I know this isn't new, but what I experienced during my NDE brought it to life in a way that is so vivid and so 3-dimensional that it's something I'll never forget.
Oh my gosh. That really takes, if you have nothing nice to say, then don't say anything at all in like the most beautiful light. That's amazing.
Yeah, I think it's a nice little topper for the episode, leaving it on a high note. And I wanted to share that story with you. So as we wrap up, how are you feeling? Is there anything that I feel like the stories that we discussed kind of touched on the stories you shared. So I was going to say, did anything shock you? But probably not.
No, definitely not. Nothing really shocked me, but I think it was a pleasant surprise to know like some of the stories that you brought forward and just hearing some of them, like especially the ghost one. Like, I haven't really told anyone that before, like maybe a couple of people anecdotally, but nothing like intentional or really important. But yeah, hearing the story of the other person seeing ghosts and whatever, I'm like, okay, cool. I did it. I saw ghosts. Cool.
Also, how synchronistic and how connected are we that you haven't really told that story and you have so many and that's the one that popped into your head.
Yeah.
And you had no idea that this was going to be you came in blind to this reading. So you had no idea what stories you're about to hear.
No.
And it turns out that your stories kind of touch on that.
Seems like I should be on Reddit.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've shared my personal story once on Reddit on a different account, but otherwise I try to stay away from, I feel like submitting to the near-death experience, or they have all these paranormal, these actual research institutes where they don't just they don't just take your story, they also vet it.
Okay.
And that's a collection of stories that people can go through.
Whoa.
That scientists can use. So it's really interesting. That's more so, that's somewhere that we should post our own stories. But wrapping up, I hope you enjoyed.
Yes.
And if you happen to be listening to this podcast and you enjoyed it, subscribe, like, follow, leave your comments. Let me know what kind of stories you like, what you would like to hear next time, what you're interested in, so we can tailor the episodes to what your interests are. And until next time, Divya.
Yay! I'll see you later.
And that's it.